Welcome back to part 3 of ranking players by position. We've already done quarterbacks, running backs. So next on the list is wide receivers. So we're going to do the top 10 wide receivers going into this NFL season. At number 10, we're going to start off with CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb is one of the more explosive wide receivers that we have in today's game. I think he gets held back a little bit by inconsistent quarterback play from Dak Prescott and the lack of weapons that around him, because some better weapons around him may allow him to create more and get open more and cause for more receptions and looks towards him because it's less focused on him. And then you lose Dalton Schultz, which doesn't help, but thankfully they brought in Brandon Cooks. So Brandon Cooks should be able to alleviate some of CD's pressure. Might drop his numbers a little bit, or it might raise them. I don't know how the effect of Brandon Cooks is going to exactly have on his stats going into this season, but I'm expecting CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott fully healthy. Hopefully they can get on sync and just keep playing that 1-2 combo like they have been. I mean, he's been explosive for them, so I'm hoping for the best for especially Dak. So let's see some stats for CD from last year. 107 receptions, cracked the 100 reception mark, almost 1,400 yards receiving, had 12.7 yards per reception. So he does have deep ball threat. And then his receiving touchdowns were almost 10. He had 9 receiving touchdowns. So, like I said, he's an explosive wide receiver. I mean, 12.7 yards per catch. He's no slant boy. So he's been able to get the ball in open space and make some plays happen. And that suits him the best. So CD at 10. Now going on to number 9, we have Deebo Samuel, probably one of the more diverse wide receivers and dynamic in the game. His ability lately of being a running back as well as a wide receiver has been off the charts. He's been able to do it all for the 49ers. Now adding Christian McCaffrey tends to make him focus more on the receiving aspect of his game, but he's still lethal from both positions wherever he is on the field. So Deebo at 9. Let's look at some stats. 56 receptions, not very high in the reception category, nor his receiving yards, which is 632, and only 2 receiving touchdowns, and 232 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. But I think the overall ability that Deebo holds on the field, his ability to run the football, ability to catch the football, he can do it all. I think that's what gives him the nod to be in at 9. He arguably could not even be in the top 10, or he would be like in the 10 spot and CD would be higher than him. I just think his dynamic ability and his versatility allows for him to be up in this top 10 mark. So moving on to the number 8, Cooper Kupp. Probably going to raise a lot of eyebrows having Cooper Kupp at 8 instead of higher. And it's nothing really against Cooper Kupp's ability. I just think the wide receiver in the NFL are just they're all insane talents. It's kind of hard to rank them 1 through 10 because, I mean, even 11 through 15, those players are still insane and could arguably probably be put in the top 10 or at least in that 10 spot. So I think Cooper Kupp at 8, still an insane wide receiver. His ability to run routes is off the charts, and his ability to get open in general is just top tier. But I think at number 8 is best for Cooper Kupp. Just looking forward in the season, I'm kind of doubting Matthew Stafford's ability. I think he's a little banged up. He's getting up there in age. He kind of showed lacks of regressing from last year. I know he had some injuries, but I think that might hold Cooper Kupp back a little bit. And Cooper Kupp, he's got to be able to stay healthy himself too. So it'd be interesting to see where Cooper Kupp lands and does this well. It'll be interesting to see how well Cooper Kupp does this year with Stafford. Hopefully they can get back to that Super Bowl year production level. They were having good numbers up until I think Cooper Kupp got banged up a little bit, and then Stafford was getting banged up a lot because of the lack of offensive line help, which doesn't help Cooper Kupp at all. But I think Cooper Kupp could easily be 6, 7, or 8. He won't be lower than 8, and I don't think he's higher than 5. So Cooper Kupp is my 8, And here are his stats from last year. He got banged up a little bit last year, so 75 catches, 812 yards receiving, 10.8 yards per reception, and 6 receiving touchdowns. I think if Stafford can show ability like he did in that Super Bowl year, you'll see a big increase in his numbers like he did that year. But if Stafford's truly regressing like I believe he is, I think these are probably close to his ceiling production. I think it's definitely a little better than this, but it's probably right where he'll be next year or this coming year. So Cooper Kupp at 8. Number 7, I have Jalen Waddle. That duo of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and a healthy Tua was the scariest thing for opposing defenses last year. I mean, 2 speedsters, and Tua's ability to throw the ball deep was just, I mean, it was a match made in heaven for those 3 to be on the same team together. And it definitely showed with Jalen Waddle's production last year. I mean, he was insane. People might have him lower, and this is where the Cooper Kupp goes up in the list and Jalen Waddle falls. But I think no later than 8, and I think 7 is probably the highest I would put him. He could be 6 and replace the guy I have at 6, but Jalen Waddle 7 is my spot for him. His production from last year was 75 receptions, almost 1,400 yards receiving, 18 yards per reception, and then 8 receiving touchdowns. I mean, talk about explosive wide receiver. 18.1 yards per reception, almost 1,400 yards, and was able to score touchdowns for the Miami Dolphins last year with 8. I mean, him and Tyreek are arguably probably the best duo wide receivers that we have in the NFL. So Jalen Waddle at 7. Number 6, A.J. Brown. He and Jalen Hurts absolutely exploded last year. They got chemistry in the offseason last year, and it definitely showed leading up to the season where they were like 14-1 before Jalen Hurts got injured. And he's just, I mean, he's a huge weapon to throw the ball to. I mean, there's some plays last year where I was watching Jalen Hurts just throw up a Hail Mary, and A.J. Brown, you know, it's like that Patrick Mahomes quote, Tyreek's down there somewhere. I mean, A.J. Brown was down there somewhere, and his ability to go up and get the football at the highest point is off the charts. So let's look at some stats for A.J. Brown. 88 receptions, almost right at dang near 1,500 yards, 17 yards per reception, and 11 touchdowns. So not only did he crack the 1,000 yards receiving, he blew it up with 1,500. Didn't quite get to 100 receptions, which is fine. I mean, he has Devonta Smith on the other side with him. They were a great running team with Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts, and then 11 receiving touchdowns. He's a red zone threat with his size. So A.J. Brown at 6. Moving on to 5, I have Stephon Diggs. Him and Cooper Kupp, probably the best route runners. Oh, no. Jalen. Oh, let's see here. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and Cooper Kupp are the top 4 route runners. I think I'll give the nod to Stephon Diggs, though. I mean, his route running is so crisp, just like Cooper Kupp's, and that's what makes them so good, and it separates them from other wide receivers. Their ability to get open is second to none. So Stephon Diggs at 5, and his stats paired with Josh Allen throwing him the football were 108 receptions, cracked the 100 mark, 1,400 yards receiving, 13.2 yards per reception, and 11 touchdowns. I mean, these are all great numbers. Each category, great numbers. Like I said, cracked the 100-yard reception, or the 100 reception mark, cracked the 1,000 yards receiving with almost 1,500, 1,400, and then had over 10 receiving touchdowns. I mean, like I said, his ability to run routes separates him, and it clearly shows with his stats from last year. Moving on to number 4, I have Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, the fastest wide receiver in the game. His ability to get open is pretty good, pretty remarkable. But what's really scary about Tyreek Hill, as everyone knows, is his ability in open field. I mean, you get the ball to him on a bubble screen. I mean, he's going to probably get 12 yards just because how fast he is and how agile he is. His deep ball from Tua to him on the deep routes, insane, just like with Jalen Waddle. I mean, they're explosive players, and you're about to see with his stats from last year. He had 119 receptions, blew out the 100 reception mark, 1,700 yards receiving, 14 yards per reception, and 7 touchdowns. 1,700 yards receiving for a guy of his stature is insane. It just shows you what this man can do in the open field, and when you get him the ball in the open field. I mean, he makes guys miss. He runs right by guys. I mean, he's not going to be the guy like A.J. Brown who gets the ball. He's going to lower his shoulder into the end zone. He's just going to make you miss and burn you. So Tyreek Hill at 4, no question about it. He's just way too fast and too lethal of a receiver in the open field. At 3, Davante Adams. He's one of the guys I left off on my best route running. Him and Stephon are 1 and 2 route runners in the NFL. Stinks that he leaves Aaron Rodgers, and now he's in a quarterback carousel right now. He had Derek Carr, got benched last year, and then now he has Jimmy G. I have a question mark with Jimmy G. Can he be that guy who can lead his team on his shoulders to victories? Because that's what the Raiders are going to have from him. He can't be a game manager for the Raiders. He's got to be able to go make things happen for them. And it does help having Davante Adams because he's so good at the wide receiver position. I mean, like I said, talk about route running. I mean, he's going to get open for you. You just got to get him the ball, and you're in good shape. And if you bring back Josh Jacobs, it's going to help so much too with those two. So Davante Adams at 3, and we're going to look at some stats now for him. With Derek Carr under center, 100 receptions, 1,500 yards, 15 yards per reception, and 14 touchdowns. Cracked the 100 reception mark, blew out the 1,000 yards, and blew out the 10 receiving touchdowns with 14. I mean, he'll make any quarterback look good because he can run a crisp route and get open with anybody guarding him, and you can just throw it up to him. I mean, he can go get the ball at the highest point as well. So any quarterback with Davante Adams, Davante's probably still going to perform because it's not hard to get him the football. So Davante Adams at 3. And now the next 2, you know exactly who the next 2 are. And it's pretty obvious and it's pretty blatant in what order they're going to go. So number 2, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, probably the best quarterback wide receiver combo right now. I mean, you could argue with the trio if Tua stays healthy, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, but Jamar Chase and Burrow are probably the most lethal quarterback wide receiver connection that's in the NFL right now. Let's look at some stats for him. 87 receptions. He got banged up last year too. Still put up 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, and had 12 yards per reception. And lastly, to round up today's video for the wide receivers, we have no one but else, Justin Jefferson. I mean, he's clearly the best wide receiver in the game. Every year he's been in the league, he's put up great stats for the Vikings, and we're just getting ready to look at his stats right now. Last year he had 128 receptions, 1,800 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 14 yards per reception. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. I mean, he's going to go out there and get his, even with Kirk Cousins on primetime, he's still going to go out there and get his own. So, Justin Jefferson at the 1. And that's going to do it for today's video. We're going to show you the top 10 list one more time before we go. At 1, Justin Jefferson. 2, Jamar Chase. 3, Davante Adams. 4, Tyreek Hill. 5, Stephon Diggs. 6, A.J. Brown. 7, Jalen Waddle. 8, Cooper Kupp. 9, Deebo Samuel. And 10, CeeDee Lamb. So that's the top 10 I have for my own rankings for the wide receiver group. That's going to do it for today's video. On the next video, we will be ranking the top 10 tight ends. So come back next time, check that video out as well. But that's all I have to do for the wide receivers today. So until next time.